Thank you everyone, good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Borough Plan Committee. Item 1 is the evacuation procedure. We've got no members of the public here and you all know the routine. Just to say there are no tests, so if the alarm does go off it's for real. The meeting, as usual, for those at home, is being live screened and will be recorded for future publication on the Council's website. Please can I ask that you all turn your mobile phones off or turn them to silent during the duration of the meeting. Item 2 is apologies. I have one apology from Councillor Walsh, who's substituted by Councillor Brown. Welcome, Councillor Brown. I have no other apologies. No, okay. Councillor Kenner.
Thank you, Chair. Just to let you know that Councillor Tromans is trying to be here. He may run late, but at the moment it looks like he may not be able to attend. So I'd like to give provisional apologies if I can if he's unable to attend while the meeting's in session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's noted. Item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of May. You should all have seen those. Are you happy for me to sign them? Yes. Item 4, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. My declarations of interest isn't part of this committee, but it's the regular declaration that accompanies full council meetings, and nothing's changed. Thank you.
Okay, that's noted. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Item 5 is public consultation. We have no public present, and I take it there are no statements to read out. So we go on to the main item, item 6, which is the Borough Plan Review Update and update to the Gypsy and Traveller Site Allocations Development Plan document and revised timetables to both documents. I think Jackie is going to present this item for us. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Councillor. The agenda provides information to update members on the Borough Plan Review, which was consulted upon in June-July 2022, and also provides a request that the timeframes for the publication version of the Borough Plan Review, known as the Regulation 19 stage, and for the Gypsy and Traveller Development Plan document timeframes be amended to bring them into line with the current working position. The timeframes are provided within the Council's Local Development Scheme, which I'll now call it the LDS. The main part of the LDS is to ensure that the local community and stakeholders have a clear idea regarding the content of the local plan documents and the timetable for its preparation. The LDS is a document required to be published and kept up to date under the Planning Act 2004. In order to identify the documents that make up the development plan documents, in the Council's case, the documents are the new emerging Borough Plan and the Gypsy and Traveller DPD. The LDS provides a 3-year project plan of these DPDs. The Council's LDS currently indicates that the publication version of the Borough Plan Review, which is the next stage of the plan making process, should have gone out to consultation this month, October 2022, and subsequently be submitted to the Secretary of State in February 2023. For reasons that I will go into, it is recommended that the publication stage is delayed until April 2023. This will then have a knock-on effect to the submission to the Secretary of State, known as the Regulation 20 stage. In terms of the Gypsy and Traveller DPD, it was formally predicted and printed within the LDS that this would be submitted to the Secretary of State in July 2022, and which would lead to the examination in public in November-December 2022, with subsequent adoption in 2023. In reality, the document was submitted earlier than this in June, and the examination will be carried out by a planning inspector in the form of a hearing later this month. This could potentially bring the adoption forwards if the plan is considered sound by the planning inspector. The amendments to the timetables within the LDS also provide an opportunity to update other parts of the LDS to meet with the current position. These minor amendments are shown within your addendum. Reasons for the delay of the Borough Plan Review are some of the key evidence base for the Borough Plan Review are still outstanding. Much of these delays are due to the delay of the key evidence base, which is the Sub-Regional Housing and Employment Needs Assessment, known as the HEDNA. This has been delayed in order that it incorporates the 2021 census data. This important document is due to be published in the near future. It is intended that once the HEDNA is published and its impacts are known, that this will be brought to the next available committee in order to fully update members. This HEDNA will supersede the Council's own HEDNA published in May 2022. It was this data that informed the preferred options. National policy requirements and to ensure that the planning inspector considers the borough plan sound at examination means that council are required to demonstrate joint working with other local authorities. This will ensure a positive statement of common ground from neighbouring authorities required for the examination progress. Part of this process is that the council has to demonstrate a duty to cooperate with other local authorities and may potentially require the council to take on any development needs required by neighbouring authorities if they can demonstrate that they are unable to fulfil their own needs. Only once the figures are provided from HEDNA, which is likely to publish in November, and the duty to cooperate is completed, can the council be certain of the final numbers required. This could potentially mean that other sites may also need to be considered, which would mean that the evidence base, including for air quality, landscaping, heritage, biodiversity, be updated, incurring costs to the council. Until the final sites and numbers are identified, another key evidence base, known as the Strategic Transport Assessment, can also not be completed as this requires significant modelling, including that for cumulative impacts. Again, only once this is completed can meaningful discussions be made with Warwickshire County Council Highways, National Highways, formerly Highways England, and Leicestershire County Council, in order to assess regional impacts. Without this, and any recommended sites could mean that the Secretary of State queries deliverability of some of the sites or even consider the plan unsound. As stated, there are a number of evidence bases and assessments currently outstanding, awaiting the finalised list of sites and site numbers. Other key evidence bases, such as the Level 2 Strategic Flood Risk Assessment of the sites, is also outstanding. Responses to the Borough Plan Review. There were approximately 100 responses to the Borough Plan preferred options. These are currently being assessed by officers and will be brought to the next committee meeting along with officer responses to the comments. These responses will require additional work in order to ensure the publication version is sound. A number of these comments refer to the accuracy of the required amount of housing and employment, as well as issues on the current situation for the duty to cooperate. The appendix gives a précis of the comments made to the preferred options. The second table of the appendix provides a briefing from assessments received subsequent to the preferred options, as well as details or other issues that need to be addressed prior to the publication version. This is not a finite list. It is recommended, therefore, that the committee members note the key issues and programme of work associated with progressing the Borough Plan Review and agrees that the amendments to the timetables and general minor modifications shown within the addendum to the LDS for the Borough Plan Review and Gypsy DPD are taken to Cabinet and full Council to be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that detailed overview, Jackie. So we've got the recommendations. I'm happy to move that from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Baxter-Payne. Thank you. Any member? Councillor Condicle.
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid it's me again. First obvious question is, have we got ahead of planning and planning policy? Because all this timetable has been delayed in part by a lack of staff. And it's very disappointing we don't see a new head or even an interim head here driving the project forward. I don't know if you want to take that first.
I'll take that immediately, because I'm pleased to say we actually have imposed an interim, an excellent interim, who's been with us for just a week now. And is, I must say, I'm very impressed so far with the work she's been doing. So, yes, that has been addressed.
Thank you, Chair. At least one step forwards. In terms of the Hedner and all the work going on, the 646 is an absolutely dreadful figure, because it actually is very little different from the third rate plan, which had 702 as the annual target. And if we start from a base of 646 and then people argue us up from that base, we will be no better off than where we are with the Labour's third rate plan. And this plan will go on for probably about another 8 or 9 years longer. So actually it's going to cause more blight and building in the countryside than we have already. So as the plan currently is looking at such a massive target, I consider it's not worth us having a plan, and we should save several £100,000 in actually not having one, because waiting another couple of years for a third rate plan is actually, and spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds developing it, when all that plan does is legalise what is already happening, doesn't seem to make much sense. We've got various sites which have been identified, like Bedworth Woodlands, which have cost so much to develop, they're effectively protected in full by actually the fact they weren't really viable when they were put in last time. So that position won't necessarily change with us having a plan or not. And the regional stuff and sub-regional stuff should give us a lower target. If we didn't have a plan at all, our target would be based on 420 or 430, the ONS's original numbers. What this Hedner work does is give a 70% uplift on that, because of their cherry picking those 5 years and drawing a straight line up. And the key problem with the Hedner, or the local Hedner, is for the last 5 or 6 years, we've been building for Coventry overflow. So if you do a housing need assessment based upon the last few years, when we've had all this building in Weddington, St Nicholas, and other places like Galley Common, if we just take that as our housing need, we've already incorporated a policy on build overall Nuneaton and Bedworth countryside policy, which is in the local plan at the moment. So I really hope we actually don't go forward with this Hedner. It's a great pity we haven't got our senior here to cross-examine on the local Hedner. I think we should wait till we actually get the sub-regional Hedner before we take any big decisions. But fundamentally, we cannot go on with a policy that has all of Coventry's overflow already built into it, and then have some more Coventry overflow or Hinkley overflow or whatever added on top of that. So we're in a dreadful place if we just accept what a senior's done, because they've given us a dreadful number which is totally unsound. And I wrote a big thing, and I senior apparently written a rebuttal which you were kind enough to send to me. But yeah, the census is clear. We haven't got as many people in the sub-region as the ONS believed. We've got more in Nuneaton and Bedworth, but we've got 40,000 missing from Coventry. And we need to get all these numbers right before we go on a crazy predict and provide thing based upon what's going on. So I really want us to wait for the Hedner and consider not having a borough plan until we have a change of government, change of council. Yeah, rushing into a bad borough plan is a dreadful plan.
Thank you for that long and very complex statement. A lot of questions in there. But the simple answer is, as you've just heard, we're waiting for the headner. And until that headner arrives and has been adjusted to reflect the outputs of the census, we don't know what the final figure will be. And as you said, you have produced your own view of what that is. We didn't discount that out of hand as happened previously. We have sent it to Iceni. You've seen their rebuttal. I've been upfront to send it to you. Both your calculations and whatever the headner ends up as, and the rebuttal from Iceni to your figures will go to the inspector. He will decide what's sound. As far as we're concerned, we're using experts in the area to predict what our housing need is, and that will ultimately produce, as far as the inspector's concerned, a sound plan. We all know what the problems are with Coventry's figures. It's well documented. There's been a debate in Parliament this week, and a fresh request, I must add, from our MPs for a moratorium on development until those figures are sorted out. So there's a lot in the air. What we do know is the delays in producing those figures have meant we've had to push our timetable back slightly. It will result in a 4-month, I think, delay at the end of this period with the inspectors' hearings. But as far as I'm concerned, it's still all to play for. We're working at pace. The previous plan took about 10 years to do. We've been in control of this council for just a bit more than, 18 months? We're already a good step the way through this review. So I hear what you say. It is all up there, and in some ways you've answered your own questions. We have to wait for that headner to come. Then we can debate what those figures look like. But until then, I can't really offer more comment on those figures.
Can I just come back on 2 points? One point was I'm very disturbed that the headner was done with policy on. It wasn't working out our need because of the way it's actually just extrapolated from the last 5 years. So I do think we need to discuss that and get a better piece of work done with policy off. I don't know if people understand, when you're designing something, you design it with no policies in place and see what would happen with housing need, and then you add the policies to actually get to a policy on position. By actually just extrapolating from the last 5 years, we've measured a policy on position, which effectively is a mistake. And in terms of running late, the Conservatives came in with an idea that it would be February 2023. You pushed it back a year, and now you push it back 14 months. So actually, were you being in power for 18 months, we now have a 14-month delay. So we're not actually doing very well. We've made effectively 4 months progress.
I beg to differ, Councillor Condogur. I think we're doing extremely well. We set an ambitious target. The reasons for the delay are not of our making. The officers have been working at pace, and we will deliver a sound plan. We absolutely will. And in terms of the figures, your calculations, you've seen the report from Iceni, they've identified it. Standard practice when producing these figures is to look back over the last 5 years of population growth and then to project forward. Your figures were based on at least 10 years looking back, and of course 10 years ago the growth in Nuneaton and Bedworth was far less than the growth in the last 5 years. So you've averaged down those figures, and you've got the rebuttal. It will go to the inspector. We'll let him decide who's right. Do we have any other member? Councillor Baxter-Payne.
Am I right in thinking that by waiting for the correct figures getting the correct information, then that will make the plan that we put forward more secure and less challengeable.
Am I on? Yes, absolutely. You're 100% correct. As I say, we are carefully producing a very sound plan. It would be stupid of us not to. The figures are being produced by industry experts, not on the back of a fag packet, so they will be what they will be. And we'll see when the final figure is produced. Councillor Chetsovic.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, having listened to what's been said, I've obviously got my own thoughts and views, but before I go into them, I'd just like to echo something that you mentioned yourself a couple of minutes ago about there was a debate on Wednesday, the 12th of October, that took place in Westminster Hall to debate the impact of new developments on Greenbelt land. This was raised by one of the Coventry MPs, and I'm really pleased that Bulkington and Rugby MP Mark Pawsey attended that and actually spoke at great length. I was delighted with the fact that he called for a moratorium again, and I did sort of write to him beforehand, and I know that you also spoke to him to ensure that he would be there. But he put forward a very, very strong speech on behalf of the borough, and I'd like to sort of publicly thank him for doing so. And I think he went beyond that, because I know he's going to now follow this up with the minister in person. So you know, I wish him the best with that, and I hope that he gets a successful outcome. Coming back to what we've got in front of us, I mean, what we've got is a Rolls-Royce of a document. The trouble is, do we need a Rolls-Royce, or do we need something like a Land Rover that's perhaps not built to the same high design quality standards, which could perhaps be produced a little bit quicker? And herein lies my issue. And that issue is just the timeline. Everything that you've got in there, I think, is very solid. It's very strong. It's very thorough. But I am concerned about the timeline. And if you talk to sort of the residents, you know, who live around HSG 7 in Bulkington off the Lancing Road development, you know, their views would be very probably different, because to them they really need to get this in, because they've got developers threatening to come forward, you know, to seek planning permission any time over the coming few months, and that review being delayed is another sort of, you know, kick in the teeth almost for them. You know, and as for the residents, you know, I think a lot of them are sort of turning around and saying to me, look, we'd almost rather have a Hail Mary where you just throw this up in the air and let the cards land where they do, for the simple fact that if we don't, by the time this gets through, the developers will have come forward, have submitted plans, and it'll all be passed, and that piece of Greenbelt land, well, former piece of Greenbelt land, will have disappeared into the sunset, and we'll have several hundred houses built upon it. So I'm in a very difficult position tonight with this, because there is an awful lot of I agree with on here. It's really well put together, but I'm struggling to support it on that one area, because for my residents who live in that part of Bulkington, it's going to probably signal the death knell to their house, their chances of stopping that development, because it is a piece of prime real estate, and then maybe slightly differently to the woodlands, which I think it was always going to be more contentious for development. This one is prime real estate, and I think, you know, there'll be lots of developers sort of rubbing their hands with glee trying to get hold of it. So I anticipate a different situation, one that Councillor Condacor alluded to a few minutes ago. So that's where I'm at, Chair. But I mean, I think the work that's been done, fabulous, fantastic, but I do have that one very major sticking point, which I say makes it very difficult for me to accept this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Chetsovic. Totally agree with you. The debate in Westminster Hall was fantastic, and Mark Pawsey MP put a great case forward, not just for Bulkington, but for the borough. And I know he's fully supported by Marcus Jones as well. I've spoken to him this week about it. In terms of HSG 7 that you refer to, and indeed the woodlands, I feel it. I feel for the residents. You know I do. You know, it's in my ward as well. What we can't do, though, is cut corners. We have to give this due process if we're going to create a sound plan at the end of the day. We can't cut corners. I would like to have this done tomorrow, but we cannot move forward until we have that Hedna. It won't be with us till November, and that then, as you heard earlier in the presentation, will create, it's like a pack of cards, it'll create an on-work of all sorts of updates to SDPs. We have to look possibly for more bits of land. They need to be evaluated. So it is difficult. All I can say is rest assured we're going as quickly as we can. And we're pretty much full staff now in the policy team. We've just started a new principal officer this week to join Jackie. And they are working at pace. We cannot go any faster. And until these external issues have been dealt with in terms of the Hedna, which will give us the opportunity to go off and speak to our partner authorities and satisfy the duty to cooperate. Until that all triggers, we can't do anything. We continue to work on the responses to the consultation and anything they've cropped up. But that's all I can say on it, really, unless you've got anything to add. No? No.
I mean, what was really interesting, I don't disagree with what you're saying, Chair, but what was really interesting is listening to that debate and just seeing how many other members of Parliament, stood up cross-party and, made very similar comments in terms of how their own local plans had inflicted the same issues. And I understand a lot of it is it's not within your power to sort of gift, but just this extending timeline is one of incredible frustration for myself and residents alike. And I know, yes, we are ward colleagues. I know you've been there every step of the way fighting this as well. But it's the frustration of it. It's just we're sort of putting one message out to residents, and then we're kind of going back on it. And I know there's external forces are the cause of that, but it doesn't make it any easier to sort of take that medicine, if I'm being honest with you.
Yes, thank you. I get it, and I totally agree. I wish I could change it, but I can't. Any other member? Councillor Tromans.
Chair, I just would like to check. You talked about the duty to cooperate, and we've had to have the Hedna and all the rest of it. Is there anything out there with other authorities that we have to cooperate with by consultation that could trip us up? So are there other people like Rugby or some other borough, whose plans are at a stage of development or redevelopment like ours, where they're not going to be able to engage fully with us, and that's going to delay us still further and put our timeline back again? Or if they're not ready, can we just say, well, we consulted with the others and we're sticking to our new timeline? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for raising that. As you probably might know, all our partner authorities across Warwickshire and indeed Coventry are in different phases. Some have just adopted their plans, some are in review mode, some are thinking about it, waiting for the Hedna to come out to make a decision. Coventry is one case. When the Hedna comes out and the Coventry figures are the thing that screwed everything up. And just coming back to the point made earlier, it was actually the Labour MP from North Coventry that raised the debate in the Commons, complaining about their figures. So, it's not just us that are suffering. Coventry are feeling it as well. And I'm guessing that when these figures come out, it will trigger a review in Coventry. Our stance is quite clear. we have very little greenbelt. Our emerging borough plan is no greenbelt policy. Definitely no greenbelt. And if we're not using our greenbelt, I don't think Coventry should either. So our stance is fairly clear. In terms of density, I've got some interesting figures. Currently, Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council has 16.5 dwellings per hectare. As a comparison, Stratford have 1.35. That is the difference in density. So, you know, we've got a really strong case when we negotiate with people to say, look, you guys have got loads of land. As an urban district, you're much less intense. We have no land to spare. We're not using our greenbelt for us. We're not going to use it for anybody else. Therefore, I think the figures we come out with in the Headner, I'm hoping will be the figures we stick with. And if other people aren't ready to talk to us when we've approached them, we can document that, and when we go to the inspector, we'll say, as far as we're concerned, we've covered our duty to cooperate. So hopefully that answers that.
Thank you, Chair. That's just the answer I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Any other member? No? Oh, Councillor Kondaka.
Just coming back on that duty to cooperate, because we've had so much Coventry stuff shoved onto Nuneaton and Bedworth, and Coventry have failed to build the railway platform and give us infrastructure. And I believe when North Warwickshire negotiated with the West Midlands conurbation, there was some talk about infrastructure, and what we've lacked is that infrastructure. You know, everyone's just going down the A444, which is adding to. And if you look at the schools and everything else, so I do hope in looking at all this lot, we're also looking at infrastructure, because we've had a schools crisis, a GP crisis, a hospital bed crisis, and Coventry is effectively dumping population on us, and that has been totally unjustified. And in terms of the Headner, that is part of the problem, because Coventry dumping population on us has caused this artificially high rate of population growth, and I think you've got to understand that Coventry's just been building student housing and shoving families, not just in Nuneaton, but particularly badly to Rugby. Rugby's been worse affected than Nuneaton in terms of added population, and this needs to be addressed. And I didn't use a 10-year projection. I used the 10-year statistics to work out all the figures. But I do think we need that debate over which rate of growth we use. Otherwise, even if we don't have a plan, this 649 will be around for developers to use when they put a planning application in, because it says it in our Headner.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if I can come back on that. Infrastructure. I know the infrastructure, a lot of it isn't in our gift, because it's highways, is with Warwick County, etc. But we do an assessment on it, don't we?
Yeah, we've got an infrastructure delivery programme, or plan I should say, and that will be reviewed as part of the process. We have already made initial contacts with all the requirements, highways, NHS, George Eliot Hospital, and all the other 106s, education obviously. We haven't had much back yet, but once we've actually got the final figures, then that will start to drive when we can start calculating with those bodies what is required for the oncoming preferred options. The oncoming published document.
Thank you, Jackie. Any other member? No? If we're all happy, then we'll move straight to the vote. So you've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Yep. Abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Any other business? I don't have any other business. So thank you. Councillor Gondaker.
Yeah, you just mentioned the Hedna coming out. Can we have a date for the next meeting and bring it forward or back so it ties in with the publication of the Hedna, so that we don't end up with a situation we either meet and there's no new data, or we meet too late after the data's arrived? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That's a good point. Hold on 1 second. We'll just check the dates. I think it is in January. I'll get you the exact date, but that will follow on. We're looking at getting the Hedna sometime in November.
If you want one, Chair, shortly afterwards, we'll be looking at posting the date in sometime in December. It's coming out.
I'll get back to you on it. It's coming out in November. The problem is we can't actually determine when in November we're going to get it, and then of course officers have to look at it. What we will do, thanks for raising the point, what we will do is schedule the meeting as soon as we can once we've evaluated the Hedna.
It was just on Councillor Condigo's suggestion. If maybe we could take it by email once we get the Hedna, we can ask, or the council can give a selection of dates for councillors to confirm the availability, just to save a bit of time now and so everyone's on the same page. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We will do that. Okay, we've had the vote. There's no extra business, so I'll call the meeting to a close. Thank you very much for attending. Yeah, we can stop the live stream.